Hey Rahul. Hey Pasha.
Hi,
Good
Jay.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning, all of you.
So I believe we have one more participant, Anup. Okay, let's wait for him. So we'll wait for another 2-3 minutes, then we'll start.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Anup. All right. So let's start. So today we are supposed to, work on the layout part. So last day we discussed that we are going to start on the coach view where we are going to create a coach view, and that's basically a kind of layout which we are going to create, and we are going to reuse in multiple human services. So here we have like two tasks which we had implemented last time, and one is for the employee and the other is for the manager. So for the manager and the employee, we are going to create a common layout which we are going to implement now, and this layout will be used in both the employee as well as in the manager's human service. So let's create. So first we will create the layout, and then we are going to create the human services for each. Okay. So if I have to create a coach view or a layout, then I need to go on the left hand side palette on the user interface, and then we click on view. Okay. So we are basically creating a new view. So coach view and view is the same thing. So we are basically creating a reusable component here, a reusable layout which can be used in both the employee as well as in the manager coach. So I'll give a name, leave application layout. Okay. Intended for use on multiple devices needs to be selected, and then we click on finish. So here we are going to design the layout which will be used in both the employee and the manager. And with the help of dynamic visibility, we are going to hide few coach views and show few coach views. Yes, who has joined? Okay. So we'll drag first few layouts. First we'll complete the design and then we'll start implementing the variables and everything. So first we need a vertical layout. Inside this vertical layout, we'll add one more vertical layout. Okay. Now in this layout, we are going to add all the fields like employee ID, employee name, all these fields we'll add. So we need a text box. There is a plain text. So we'll add more. Let me just start just giving the name. So employee ID, employee name, then we'll have a drop down, then we select. Okay, so we need to create the variable, so we'll do that later on. So first let's add all the code views. So employee ID, employee name, type of leave, then we'll have date time picker. Okay, what else we need? Start date, end date, reason of leave. That's the text area. So more or less this will be the fields for the employee coach. And yes, there would be some button. So we'll add one button also, like apply or submit. So our first part of the layout is done. This is for the employee. Uh, yes, what I would do, I would add something called batch. Okay, so this entire section is for the employee. Now we'll create another layout, this time for the manager. Now see, whatever we have added at the top, now this would definitely, you know, will also be, it will be shown to the manager also, right? So manager also needs to see employee ID, employee name, type of leave, all these things. So we are not going to create again a separate layout for the manager where I would show the same fields in read-only mode, right? So the same fields which we have added for the employee, the same fields we are going to add for the manager also. Already these fields have been added. So the same fields we are going to show for the manager also, but in the read-only mode. So we'll be using dynamic visibility. So I haven't added any variables till now. So we will definitely add them. But before we'll complete the design. So one more field we need in the employee layout, that is a text box. There is a plain text basically. This will be selected leaf. Now this field will show whenever this will open for the employee, selected leave will, I'll hide it from the user. But in case when I'm showing this for the manager, then in that case I'll hide everything, but I'll show this one selected leave to the manager. Okay, in read only mode. So now our layout is done for the employee with all the fields. Now we'll add one more layout below. let me complete the design and then I'll explain. Okay, so we have added almost all the coach views, whatever was required for the layout. Now this includes both the employee as well as the managers, managers, coach views. So what we need to do first, we need to create few variables where we need to add our entire business object, right? Employee information, and also we need to create some visibility variables through which we are going to sometimes we are going to show few fields to the employee, sometimes we're going to hide few fields for the employee, and same thing we're going to do for the manager also. So using those visibility variables, we're going to hide few and we're going to show few. So first we'll come to these variables, and here we can see there are mainly here two types of variables. One you see at the top which says business data, and the other you see configuration options. Okay, business data is where you add the entire business object, whatever you have created for this entire application, leave application. So what we have created employee information business object, which has the different fields like employee ID, employee name, type of leave, selected leave. All these fields have been added there. So we are going to create one business data. So for that, I would create a variable and I would give a name employee information, and we'll bind this with our business object which we have created, employee information. So now this will have all the parameters over here. Okay. Now why we are creating this business data? This variable employee information, we have to bind with the entire leave application layout. Okay, because our leave application layout consists of the different fields like employee ID, employee name. So definitely we have to map each coach view with this variable. But apart from that, the entire layout, whenever we're going to add that layout in our coach, so over there we need to configure the entire layout with our employee information business object. Okay, we'll see that how to configure it. First, let's understand the variables. So business data, we always add a business object over here, which we are using in our layout. As simple as that. Okay. So whenever you're designing a layout, if any business object you are using for all the fields, so that business object you need to add under business data. Okay. Now comes configuration options. Under configuration options, you need to create those variables which you have to configure from your coach. Okay. For example, visibility. Okay, so this layout which we are creating, whenever I'm going to add this layout for the employee coach, with the help of some visibility variable which we are going to create under configuration options, I will configure or I will control this entire layout, what needs to be shown to the user and what needs to be hidden for the user. Okay, so whenever you are trying to configure any data from the coach to control the fields of the coach view, we create those kind of variables under configuration options. Okay, so basically whenever you're dragging that layout on the coach, okay, now this is about right now what we are seeing the coach view. But this codes view, whenever you're going to connect or whenever you're going to drag on your codes, on your main code, that is the employee or the manager codes, there after adding we need to configure that particular layout over there. So using configuration option variables, we can configure that. Okay, we'll see how to configure. Let's create the variables first, and then definitely first we need to map all the page views that we have added. So I'll create initially two variables here: employee visibility and manager visibility. If we need any other parameters, okay, then we are going to add it later on. But first we'll understand. First we need to map all the variables first. Okay, so let's map them here first. So employee ID, like we have already done the mapping before. So employee ID, employee name, type of leave. So it should be selected with mapped with selected leave, and going to the configuration here, items from static list, and we're going to map the static list over here. Okay, now we come to the manager part. Manager remarks. Okay, now manager action is again something which we are going to assign few values for that variable on the coach level or on the human service level. So approve and reject, we are going to create two configuration variables. One is approve, that should be boolean, and then reject, which also will be boolean. Going back to the layout, I'm going to bind those two buttons with these variables. Okay. Now after we have mapped all the page views with the parameters, now it's the time to map our visibility variables with the layout. Okay. So how to map it, let's see. So first, our previous layout. So this one. First of all, this employee view and manager view. Okay. Now employee view will be displayed only for the employee, and manager view will be displayed only for the manager, right? So first, in the employee view, I'll go to the visibility and we'll map a variable here called employee visibility. And for the manager, I will map manager visibility. Okay. Now here, for this entire layout, I will map this with employee visibility. And the below layout that we have added, that will map with the manager visibility. Now, there are few things which we need to do more. We need to add few more visibility variables. Okay, the reason being, here we have added something called selected leave. Now I want this particular page view is visible only for the manager and not for the employee, which means I have to hide this field for the employee, right? So we'll add one more parameter here, just visibility. We'll come back here and we'll map this with our new variable. Okay. Just let me just think it. Here, when this layout will be added to the employee view will be visible. Employee view will be visible, and manager, whatever we have for the manager, we need to hide that. Okay. Now, this one we are showing to the end user for the employee, but again, selected leave we are not showing. Okay. Now we come to the below layout. This we are showing to the manager, but we are hiding it for the employee. Okay, that's the reason we have added this variable. Okay, right. So now we'll come back to the layout if you have any questions. But let's go back to our employee task. So we'll create. I believe one human service is already created. So over here in this previous script, just a moment. Let me populate those name value pair here. Initialize. Yeah. Like this. Here we are going to add the same script. We have seen the coding last day also. I mean previous day. So we'll just initialize the name value pair. Not local dot employee information dot if type is equal. Okay, only these three items will add. Now we'll go to our coach. Let me delete everything, whatever we have here. Okay, now the page is blank. Now we'll drag the layout. Search for the layout on the right hand side, which you have created. This is the layout, leave application layout. So I'm going to drag it here. Okay. Now this entire layout that we have added, right? So the first thing that we need to do, and you can see already since we have dragged the layout, you see, since we have added the business data, the entire layout has been mapped with our employee information business object. Okay. And this is something must which we have to do, because whenever you're creating a layout or a coach view, and you add some business object under business data variables, so we need to make sure that the same business object we need to map with the entire layout whenever we are dragging that layout in the coach. Okay, that is exactly what has been done. Because when I drag that layout in the middle, automatically it got binded with this employee information business object. Okay, now what we need to do? We need to now use the visibility variables to hide few fields over here and to show some fields. So for that, we are going to create few visibility variables, just like we have created under configuration options in the inside the coach view. Okay, now we go back to the coach once again. Now you see this layout, we need to select first. Okay, it's already selected, and after you've selected this, we come to configuration, and here in the configuration you see this were the parameters that we had added under configuration options of our layout, our coach view, right? So whenever you add something under configuration options, you can use the same variables, okay, from your coach, okay, on the human service. Basically you can create the same set of variables over here to control the visibility or to control the data of your coach view. Okay. Through configuration option variables, I can always control the data or I can control the visibility of my coach views which we have added inside the layout from the coach. Okay. So here just we need to map these variables first. See, approve and reject we don't need here. This is the employee task. Anyways, we are going to hide that section. Like manages layout, we anyways going to hide it. So there is no need to map any variables over here. Okay, you can leave that empty. But for the manager, these two variables will be important. So in that case, we have to map the variables over here. So these three parameters we will use over here. Okay. Now employee visibility, whatever has been mapped with employee visibility, that should be visible to the end user. As simple as that, right? Whatever we have mapped with the employee visibility. So I'll come to my diagram, and in the first script that we have added, so inside the script I will add right at the beginning pw.local.employee visibility is equal to, you can use editable, you can use default, you can use same as parent, all are same. Okay, so I will use editable. This is the employee task, so we have to show the employee layout. Okay, whatever employee fields we have added, so I'm making it editable. But for the manager I will hide, so which means I'll make it none. And we have added one more parameter, if you remember, called visibility. And visibility we have mapped with what? We have mapped with selected leaf, right? So selected leaf we are not going to show right now, so I'll make it none. Okay, if everything is fine, if all the layouts the way we have created everything is fine, if I run this human service right now, it should show me only the employee fields. Okay, although there are manager fields are also there, right? But it will show me only the employee fields. Let us see. So what do we see? We see only employee fields. A lot of things we have added. We have added badge for the manager, which will display manager view, and all the rest of the things that we have added manager remarks also, we have added the approve reject button also, but we are showing only those fields we want to see for the employee. Similarly, when we go to the manager, we will do the same thing. Okay, we are going to hide all the fields for the employee. We're going to make all the fields of the employee as read only, and instead the manager remarks and the approve and reject button we are going to make it as editable for the end user. Okay, so here, let us check whether the data is coming. Yes, data is also coming. Only that I can see this apply button is not mapped correctly. You see here, this button is showing me as apply, but here it is showing me as okay, right? So how to map it? Simple. Select this particular sequence flow, which has your boundary event on it. Okay. Come to the behavior, end state binding. Here it shows you okay, right? We'll click on select, and just from here you can select apply and click on finish. So automatically this binding will be taken. Okay. Now this one for the employee. Employee is actually very simple. When we go to the manager, that time the challenge will come. Okay. So let's go to the manager now. I believe for the manager, I have not created any human service. So let me create one. So here we need both input and output. So I will select both and will click on finish. Okay, so we have the coach here. Now for the coach, whatever has been added, since we are using the activity wizard just now, since we just used the activity wizard to create this human service, so the layout is already added. I mean, by default layout is added. So we need to delete this because we have just created our layout and that only we are going to use here. Okay, so once again on the right hand side, search for leave application layout. This one is the layout. Just drag it in the middle. Okay, we will see once again. See the entire layout this time is not binded. So if it is not binded, even if you have dragged it, still it is not binded. So we have to bind it with our input. Okay, the entire layout. That is the first step. Now the second step is we go to the variables and we create few private variables over here. Say we will create employee visibility. We'll create manager visibility, and then we'll create one more parameter called visibility, and few more we need approve, which will be boolean, and then there will be reject, that will also be boolean. Now there is one challenge. Suddenly I realize the challenge, that is whatever we have for the employee fields, right? Whatever we have added for the employee, the same fields we have to show to the manager, but in read-only mode, which is fine. But among those fields, there is one field which we will not be showing. What is that field? Type of leave, right? For the manager, there is no use to show the drop down, right? Because the manager will only see what has been selected in the drop down. So there is one challenge over there because we need to hide that, and we are not using any visibility variable till now for that parameter. Okay, so in case while implementing, if you think that you need to add more visibility variables or need to add more configuration variables, definitely you can go back to the layout and add one more. That is not an issue, but we need to make sure, right, that that whatever we are trying to, whatever we're planning to show to the end user, that is being shown correctly. Okay, so in while implementing, if you think that you want to add more parameters for your layout, that is absolutely fine. You can always go back and create that parameter in the layout and you map it again over here. Okay, so that is one challenge. The other challenge will be, you know here we have mapped the entire employee visibility variable with the entire part of the layout. Let's go back to our leave application process layout. Okay, let's go back to the layout. Let's see how we have mapped it. This entire layout, okay, we have mapped with, let me check. Okay, we haven't mapped this entire layout. Okay, that is fine. But the problem is employee view and manager view. Now, employee view again has been added with employee visibility. Now, employee visibility, we are going to make it as read only. But I don't want to show the employee view at all. So, which means again, I have to use some other parameter to you to map this particular badges. Okay, both the badges basically. So, we'll create parameter called badge, emd badge vis, and manager badge vis. So this will be mapped with employee badge vis and this I'll map with the manager badges. Okay. So if I have a separate variable altogether, then I can definitely, hide it completely. When it will open for the employee, I will hide the manager view completely, and whenever it will open for the manager, I will hide the employee view badge completely. I can do that. Now, coming to this type of view, even this also needs some visibility variable because I have to hide this for the manager. Okay, so if I have to hide this for the manager, so which variable I should use here, which I am already making it as none. I am planning to make it as none for the manager. We don't have any such variable, I believe. Visibility. This is visibility. This I have to show to the manager as read only. So let me add one more. And this one, manager view, manager language none. Okay, because I haven't configured it yet. Okay, this is fine. But our main challenge is manager. Let's go to the manager. So here we'll add those parameters. Employee badges. Type of lead. Yes. So tw.local.employee badge with is equal to none. Obviously, I'll not show the manager badge, not show the employee badge here, but I will show the manager badge. So this will be editable. Employee visibility, employee, the one which we have created initially. Employee visibility. This will be read only. But Leaf type visibility, I believe type of leaf visibility will be none. And manager visibility, yeah, we are showing that employee visibility will making as none. Yes, so manager visibility we need to show. Manager visibility is equal to ID table. This one will show. So let's see, we'll run and see whether we are able to do. Okay, one more thing here. The binding is not correct over here. So first of all, this will be some script will be there, which will capture the manager action. So both the bindings need changes. So just change it to approve and reject. One would be approve and the other would be reject. So we'll write the code later. Let's see whether we are able to achieve the one which we want to. Okay. So employee ID, employee name, start date, end date, everything is fine. Apply shouldn't have come, and selected leave should have been in read only, right? This is the one, and below everything is fine. Approve and reject, everything is fine. Only that selected leave should be read only, and this button should not be visible. Now, selected leave, selected leave, selected leave. We are showing here. Okay, so okay, let's go to the layout once. Selected leave. Selected leave has been mapped with visibility parameter. So this visibility parameter we have to make it as read only over there. Okay. So manage a task. And about that button apply which is coming, that we need to make as none over here. So this variable, this visibility variable that we are using for the type of leaf, the same we can map it for that also, right? So let us go back to the layout. Apply. Now if I run our manager task, now it's coming fine. Employee ID, employee name, selected leave, start date, end date, reason of leave, everything is read only, and the below the part, the coach views, manager remarks, approve and reject are editable. Okay, so now we are able to achieve what we want to implement. So we have created a layout which we are using both for the employee as well as for the manager, and using certain variables which we are controlling through the configuration options variable, we are controlling the visibility of this coach views which we have added in the layout. Okay, now just think from a very large from a very big perspective, in a way that whenever you get a requirement where you have multiple human services, right? So in that case, if you just create one layout, we can reuse that layout in multiple coaches. Okay, and that is exactly how we implement in a real-time project where we have multiple human services with multiple coaches. Okay, so we have different approval levels. Like we have manager, we have senior manager, we have complex managers. So all the different types of managers, and we are supposed to create tasks for each of them. So just think from a developer's perspective, it could have been a big overhead, right? If I have to create the coaches separately for each of those human services. But if I have a layout, then I can just simply drag that layout and whatever whatever I want to show to in particular coach, I will show it. In another coach, I have to hide few fields. So this way, I have to just use dynamic visibility to hide and to show few fields to the end user. Okay, that is how it is achieved. Any questions till now? Any questions we have, guys?
Rahul, apart from reusability, is there any performance,
Hmm.
uh,
Performance, yeah. So performance wise, adding directly coach views to a coach has a better performance obviously than adding a layout completely on a coach, because we are rendering the data, right? So whatever data we are populating in the human service, we are showing that in the coach views in the layout. So performance wise, obviously we have very few fields, it will not impact. But in case if you have multiple fields, okay, say we have multiple sections. Say we are designing our a layout for a banking project where we have multiple sections, like employee information, then we have employee salary information, employee address information. So in that case, what is recommended, you create multiple sections or multiple layouts, and then you add it in the parent layout. So that way you can achieve performance, a better performance. And whatever we have done, creating layout and using it multiple places, this will not hinder the performance of your coach, because anyways we are populating every details from the end user. Now in case if I had fetch the details, say leave type, I am fetching it through the database and then I am showing it over here, then there would have been some challenge from the performance perspective. But till now, everything is fine because we are creating the data through the layout. Okay, and a lot of things can be implemented actually. That this entire layout, see, this will never cause any performance issue, but there can be a scenario where this entire layout, whatever data you are showing, okay, say for the manager, whatever data I am showing, say I am showing it from the database. Okay, everything is coming from the DB. Then I'm populating it here. That will cause performance issue. So whenever the coach will load, first it will call the DB, get all the information, and then it will show you on the layout. This can cause some performance issue, but still we have some solution. I mean, we can implement lazy loading. Initially, section will be collapsed or the layout will be collapsed. Whenever you click on it, an Ajax service is going to call the DB, get all the information, and going to populate all the fields in the layout. Okay, whatever we have implemented till now, this will not cause any performance issue. But in case if you have integrated with database to get all the details, so that can cause performance issue, but that also has some solution. Okay, we'll see that in our database session how to implement it. Okay, any other doubts, guys? Pasha, all good with you? Guys, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. I'm good now.
Okay. Okay. All right, guys, just give me 10 minutes. Okay. I'll be back in 10 minutes. So this time, actually, I have to drop my wife to school, which is 5 minutes away from here. I'll drop and I'll come back once again. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, I'm back. Okay. So if you're good with this, then we'll proceed with the next part. So I'm supposed to complete one more topic today. That might take around half an hour, 45 minutes, which possibly is the last topic in our first 50% of our session. That is gateways. Okay. So before going into that, do we have any queries or questions on anything we have covered till now? Whatever sessions we have done, it's not only about this layout part, but any session that anything is there where you have some queries.
Uh, Rahul, when I was trying
Yes.
to add validation to the drop down, whether the drop down is selected or not, so
Mm-hmm.
what was happening is the drop down was highlighted, but
Hmm.
the error message was not displayed. I can't show you now because I have some issue with login to IBM Cloud.
Hmm.
But yeah, this was and second was I was not able to
Hmm.
use tw dot object in
Hmm.
in outside the coach. uh, I was not able to use tw dot object, but in
Okay.
validation we have already used tw dot object for something, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so these are the two.
Validation is tw.system dot coach validation dot add validation error.
Yeah. So when we added this to a
Hmm.
drop down, the
Hmm.
drop down was highlighted, but
Hmm.
the message was not displayed. Whereas on the text, the message was displayed.
Okay, tell me something. Were you validating on the type of leaf or were you validating on the selected leaf?
I did when I did on selected leave, the
Hmm.
type of leave was highlighted,
Hmm.
but not displayed. But when I do no, when I do a selected leave, nothing was highlighted. But when I do on a type of leave, the type of leave was highlighted, but the message was not displayed. Let me try to log in also to my.
No, else we can do. I'll do a POC today. I'll come back tomorrow and show you the drop
Okay,
down validation.
okay, sure.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. Just note it. I just noted it down. I'll show you tomorrow. And about the validation, so once I show you this part, if it validates, then I can show you like why the TW object is not working. So let me try at my end once. Okay. All right. Now, uh, okay. Any other doubts, guys? We are good with whatever we have covered till now, because a use case will be provided to you today. I'll share one use case which we will discuss tomorrow, and which you need to implement, and you will demo me on this Friday. Okay, so whatever we have covered till now, on top of that, this use case is going to be provided. So it's very simple. So you can implement it within 1 or 2 days, and you can demo it on Friday. You can demo it even using BAW trial, not an issue. All right. Now, last day we were discussing about when we were seeing the validation. That time we discussed about some component called gateways, right? So we have seen only one type of gateway, which we implemented. If you remember, we implemented for the employee human service, where based on some parameter, we were routing the sequence flow either to the end event or to the coach, right? And that time I had said you that that there are mainly four types of gateways. Okay, let me open a notepad. So there are four types of gateways, and first we have like exclusive gateway. Then we have inclusive gateway. Third, we have parallel gateway, and fourth, we have event gateway. These four types of gateways exist in IBM BP. Now, exclusive gateway can be implemented both in the process layer as well as I can implement it in my service layer. Whether it's a human service, whether it's a service flow, anywhere, any service flows or any human service, we can implement exclusive gateway also. But inclusive gateway, parallel gateway, and event gateway, these three gateways can be implemented only in the process layer. These gateways are not available in the service layer. Okay, so in the service layer, if we need to implement any gateway, that is exclusive gateway, and that is enough. I mean, exclusive gateway, the way it functions, uh, in usually in a service, we have to implement only exclusive gateway based on some condition. Only one path will satisfy. Okay, now all these four gateways, whatever we are seeing, we are going to implement everything. Event gateway we are not going to see today, because event gateway we need to complete only after we know what is event and what are the different components that can be used in an event. After that only we can implement this event gateway. Okay, event gateway needs complete understanding of events, otherwise you will not be able to implement it. So our next topic, which we are going to start from tomorrow onwards, so we are starting our next 50%. So more advanced topics are going to start from tomorrow. Okay, so event usually takes 3 days to complete, to be very honest, because event is huge. It has got so many components and so many implementations can happen in event, and usually I show all the implementations whatever can come in a project. So we are going to cover events from tomorrow, and after we have covered events, so last we are going to see this event gateway. So for this types of gateway, I'm going to implement three different process, and I'm going to show you how these three different gateways will function in a process layer. Okay, so let's go back to the processor. Okay, I'll be implementing this in a different process application. Okay, so for each gateway, I will create a process. Okay, first let's see what is an exclusive gateway, how actually the exclusive gateway works. Okay, what is the algorithm behind an exclusive gateway? We'll see all these things now. So I'll give a name, exclusive gateway process. Okay, now whatever process we are going to design, okay, we will not be implementing any human service, right? Which I'm trying to say is I'm not going to create any human service separately. We have few dummy human services available. Okay? We're going to use them, because exclusive gateway or inclusive gateway or parallel gateway, right now we are seeing how it can be implemented in the process layer. So what happens exactly in the human service, we don't have to see that, because human service implementation is not required over here. But since we need to, we have to add user activities or user tasks, and we need to route those paths, okay, different activities to different activities from the gateways. So I have to add some user tasks, but the same user tasks which I'm going to add, I'm going to map it with some dummy human service. Okay, so let me complete the design, then I'll explain the design part. Okay, so I'll create few parameters which we are going to use in the condition. So let me make this as a boolean, and we'll add one more parameter, say employee location. So here you can see all the 4 different types of gateways are available in the process. First one is an exclusive gateway. Second one is the inclusive gateway. Third is my parallel gateway, and the fourth is the event gateway. So we are implementing exclusive gateway first. I'll explain the diagram, so don't worry. Let me just complete the design and then I'll explain everything. Although it's very simple, what I'm doing, I'm just adding the activities, user tasks, okay? And I will add the sequence flows from this gateway to all this uh, basically sequence flows over here to all these activities. And from here, connect to the end event. Okay. Okay, so what I've done here, I have added one activity right at the beginning, activity 1. After this is completed, it will come to this gateway. In this gateway, we are going to implement some conditions. I have not implemented any condition till now. Okay, based on the condition, whichever condition is true, it will take any one path from this gateway. Okay, the significance of exclusive gateway is that you know that it can satisfy only one condition. It cannot satisfy multiple conditions, right? So that's my exclusive gateway. So I can implement multiple conditions on an exclusive gateway, but it can satisfy only one condition, which means it can only trigger one path coming out of this exclusive gateway. One output path it will trigger. Okay, so let's see what conditions we will implement. But before that, I have added here two variables. Okay, validation success and EMP location, and based on these two parameters, we are going to write the condition on the exclusive gateway. Right now, these two parameters, like I said, that we are not implementing any human service. We are seeing how the gateway works on the process layer. So for that, I don't want to implement any human service, but these variables, I need to populate some data, right, for these variables. So I will add some default value for these two parameters. Okay, based on that value, we are going to write some conditions. So how can I add some default value to these parameters? You see, whenever you select a parameter over here in the variables, below there is something called default value. I can add some default value to this parameter. Okay, say I make it as true. So validation success I have made as true, and employee location, again I can again add some default value. Say I make it as India. Okay, so these two fields we will use, and using these values we are going to write some conditions over here. So I've selected the gateway, and now I can write some condition in the implementation part. Okay, so what it actually says here, we need to write the condition, and based on some condition, based on whatever conditions we are writing, it will take me either to activity 3 or activity 4, or it will take the default flow, that is to activity 2. Okay, so let's write the condition. Say it will go to activity 3 whenever tw.local.employee location is equal to India. Okay, and the second condition I'll write tw.local.employee location is equal to say India. I believe I have given everything in uppercase, right? So this would be dot lowercase, and let me keep this in lowercase. India, and here I will add a complex condition, which means with the help of multiple parameters, I can implement a single condition, a complex condition. So I will write end tw dot local dot validation success equal to false. Okay. Now, is it clear that the second one will never work? This activity will never be triggered because here the employee location I have given as country, which is fine, but the validation success parameter I have added it as false. But but our parameter which we have added validation success, we have added default value as true. So this condition will never work. So my first activity, that is activity 3, should be triggered because I have written employee location is equal to India, which is matching with the value which we have populated, right? So we can run this process and see that what the exclusive gateway will decide, okay, in which path it will take me. Now, before that, I am selecting this activity 1, and if I take you to the implementation property, here we need to map some dummy human service, okay? So I click on select, and here you see these are the dummy human services, like client side human service is a dummy human service, default UI human service is a dummy human service, okay? So I can use any one of them. So let me use the default UI human service, and for the others already the human service has been added. Why? Because I drag the user task from here. Whenever you drag a user task from the right hand side palette, automatically some dummy human service is already mapped, okay? You see, for all this user tasks activity 2, 3 and 4, this default UI human service has already been added, okay? So that's my dummy human service mapping. Now let me run this process. So I can see instance ID 103 has been created, and if I show you the diagram, you can see the token is right now on top of activity 1, okay? It is on top of activity 1. So once I complete activity 1, then this token will move to this exclusive gateway. It will decide which condition to satisfy, and accordingly it will take one output path, okay? So let me claim this activity 1. So this is a dummy coach. You can see nothing is there. You can simply click on any button to move forward, okay? So I click on done to move forward. Now you see straight away it went to activity 3. I can see a token on top of activity 3, but I don't see token on any other activities, right? Which means our condition that we have written for the first one for activity 3, it has satisfied, okay? So activity 3 is triggered. Now let's say the same condition I write for activity 4 also. What will happen? Will activity 4 also will be triggered? Let's see. And by seeing this example, we can conclude the algorithm of exclusive gateway, okay? Let me run this process again. Now ideally both the activities should be triggered, right? Because both the conditions are satisfied. So my activity 1 is triggered. I will claim it and will complete it. So I can see again only activity 3 is triggered. Now why so? Why only one activity is getting triggered even after multiple conditions are getting satisfied? The reason is exclusive gateway algorithm. If I need to write it down, I can write it down with the help of if else statement. And what do we know in an if else statement? If any of the block, say for example, we have written the first condition as if. So the if statement, if it satisfies, then it will never go to the else, right? So here the first condition is that employee location is equal to India, then go to activity 3. Else, if again employee location is equal to India, then go to activity 4. Else, go to activity 2. So the first condition is satisfied, so it will never move to the next condition. Understood, guys? What is our exclusive gateway? Any questions on exclusive gateway? Okay, silence means that we are good. All right. So now we move to the next type of gateway, that is inclusive gateway. Yes. Anybody has any questions? Okay. So to save our time, I'll duplicate this process. Okay. And I will rename this new duplicated process as inclusive gateway. I'll close it. I'll open this inclusive gateway process, and just one thing I'll do, I'll change here the instance name to inclusive gateway, and we'll save it. And this gateway, whenever you drag a gateway, say by mistake you have added an exclusive gateway, but you wanted to add an inclusive gateway. So either what you can do, either you can delete this completely and you add a new one from the right hand side. Okay, you add a new one from the right hand side palette, inclusive gateway. This one you can drag, or you can select this gateway, exclusive gateway, and you come down to the general property of this gateway. You see on the right hand side we have something called behavior. In this behavior you have the different types of gateway. You can just select the one which you want to implement. Okay, this one is the most easiest way, because if you again delete this and add a new one, I had to again delete all the sequence flows and again had to connect them. So best is you map it with different types of gateway from the general behavior property. So here I'll just name it as inclusive gateway. Now guys, before I implement it, just one more information I need to provide over here. Exclusive gateway is the simplest one. Okay, so leaving it aside, and event gateway we are not doing today, so I'll just remove this thing. Both inclusive and parallel gateway can be implemented as both converging and diverging gateway. Okay, what do I mean by converging and diverging? We have studied this in our school, in our college, while we used to study physics. So converging point and diverging point. Converging point is a point from where multiple output paths are going out. That's my diverging point. Okay, diverging is where we have a point from where multiple output paths are going out, and converging is where multiple inputs are coming and meeting at one point. That one point is called my converging point. So both inclusive and parallel gateway can be implemented both as a converging and diverging gateway, and we are going to see both the implementations. Okay, so I have created one inclusive gateway process. This gateway can tell me if you have understood the converging diverging thing, what type of gateway this would be, what kind of inclusive gateway this is. This is diverging. Okay, so from this point I am having multiple output paths going out of this gateway. So this is my diverging inclusive gateway. Okay, similarly I will add converging inclusive gateway somewhere over here. Okay, so I'll add one more gateway over here, and I'll add all the sequence flows which I have connected to the end event. I will connect now to this gateway. I'll add one more user task just before the end event. I'll name this as activity 5. Okay, so if you see the diagram right now, that's how it looks like. So we have a diverging gateway, diverging inclusive gateway from where multiple output paths are connected to activity 2, 3, and 4 respectively. And from each of these activities, I have connected the output path from each of these activities to my converging inclusive gateway. And from this converging inclusive gateway, I have connected to activity 5, which after it is completed, it will go to the end event and will complete the process. Okay. Now, the thing is, we can implement condition only on my diverging inclusive gateway. Okay. Now, since we have duplicated the process, automatically the conditions, whatever we had written in the previous process, that also has been added. Okay. And for a converging, for a converging gateway, you cannot implement any condition. Why? Simple, because you have only one output path. So definitely you cannot implement a condition over here. So what is the functionality of this converging inclusive gateway? We'll see while implementing this, while running this process, we'll see how this converging gateway works. Diverging gateway will work how? So it is unlike exclusive gateway. Inclusive gateway can satisfy multiple conditions. Okay, so here we can see that I have implemented multiple conditions over here, which is satisfying. So if I go to the implementation, you see the first condition will satisfy, and even the second condition also should satisfy, which means both activity 3 and activity 4 will be triggered. Okay, if this was an exclusive gateway, only the first activity, this activity 3, would have been triggered, right? So let me run this process. So activity 1 is triggered. I can see the first activity. I'll complete that. We'll move forward. And now what do we see? We see activity 3 is triggered and activity 4 is also triggered. Both has tokens on top of it, right? But activity 1 is not, activity 2 is not triggered because that condition did not satisfy. So unlike an exclusive gateway, inclusive gateway can satisfy multiple conditions. And what is the logic behind this algorithm? Here the conditions are written without any else statement. So we have just written with the help of if condition or if statement that if my employee location is equal to India, go to activity 3. If employee location is equal to India, go to activity 4. If employee location is not India, then in that case it will go to default flow. Okay. Now our way, so what we have implemented employee location as India. So both the conditions are satisfying for activity 3 and activity 4. So both these activities have been triggered. Okay. Now we are going to complete each of these activities one by one, and we will see how this converging inclusive gateway will work. Okay. So this converging inclusive gateway, it is waiting for the tokens to reach, right? Now what will happen when some of the token will reach and some token will still be pending to reach over there? And also what will happen after both the tokens will reach over there? Okay, we'll see both. So first I will claim activity 4 and we'll complete that. And now we'll see something over here. We see the token which was on top of activity 4 has now moved to this converging inclusive gateway and is waiting for the other token from activity 3 to reach. Whenever the token from activity 3 will reach that inclusive gateway, then only it will move forward and it will trigger activity 5. Okay, so my inclusive gateway is smarter. So it knows that, okay, so both these activities, activity 4 and activity 3 has been triggered. So I should wait for both the tokens to reach. Then only I will allow to move it forward to the next activity. Okay. So just before, before I run this activity 3 and show you exactly how it works, there is there are two terms that we should know. Okay. One is available path and the other is active path. And both this available path and active path that we will discuss, this is with respect to your converging gateway. Okay, be it your converging inclusive gateway or be it for your converging parallel gateway, both these terms, uh, they are logical. Okay, what is this active path and available path? Available path for this gateway, for this converging inclusive gateway, is all these three paths. Whatever paths are connected to a converging gateway, all the three paths are can be said as the available path. Okay, and what are the active path? Only those paths which will be triggered, they are considered as the active path. Okay, so for this converging inclusive gateway, if we talk about the active path, so the path coming from the activity 3 and the other sequence flow which is coming from the activity 4, they are considered as the active paths. And all the three paths, be it from activity 4, activity 3 and activity 2, all the paths are considered as the available path, right? So I believe we have understood. If you have any queries, guys, please stop me there and you can ask me questions. Okay, so this is the difference between available path and active path. Okay, yes.
Rahul, I have a question. Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
this conversive gateway will know, right, what are the active paths
Correct,
automatically. Yeah. Okay.
correct, yes. That is the reason inclusive gateway is I will not explain now. You will see the parallel gateway, how the parallel gateway will work. That time you will understand who is more smarter, inclusive gateway or parallel gateway, because it is also up to the gateway to understand I should wait for an active path or I should wait for available path. Inclusive gateway always waits for active path. It knows which paths are active, and it knows, since it knows which paths are active, so it knows that which tokens I should wait. So it knows that okay, activity 3 and activity 4 was triggered, so I should wait for the tokens only for these two activities, leaving out activity 2. Okay, that is the concept of converging inclusive gateway. So if I complete this activity 3, now the token will move forward to activity 5, which means now the inclusive gateway has understood, okay, so all my active tokens have come from the active path. Now I should allow this token to move forward and trigger the next component, that is activity 5. Okay, so this is all about inclusive gateway. It's very simple. Unlike an exclusive gateway, diverging inclusive gateway can satisfy multiple conditions, and converging inclusive gateway, it's wait for tokens only from the active path, and then only it will allow to move to the next component. Okay, that is my inclusive gateway. Understood? Any questions, guys, on inclusive gateway or exclusive gateway?
I'm good, Rahul. No, no doubts.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll go to our next gateway, that is parallel gateway. So once again, I'll duplicate this. I'll rename it parallel gateway process. I'll finish. This is the parallel gateway process. I'll open it. I'll go to the overview first and I will change this instance name because I'm duplicating it. So the old instance name is picking up. Save it. I'll come to definition, and what we will do, whatever gateways we have added till now, we are going to change that to our parallel gateway. Okay. So first one, diverging inclusive gateway, I will change it to parallel gateway. I will also change the name to diverging parallel gateway. Similarly, I will do it for the inclusive gateway, the converging inclusive gateway, I will change it to converging parallel gateway. Okay. Now, the designer first. Okay. So here, this is the diagram now. Okay. So now this is the parallel gateway where I can see both converging as well as diverging. Now, unlike an exclusive gateway and inclusive gateway, we cannot implement any condition on a parallel gateway. Okay, we cannot implement any condition for a parallel gateway. Whenever the diverging parallel gateway will be active, whatever output paths you have added, all the output paths will be triggered, and all these three activities will also be triggered. Basically, parallel gateway is used to create parallel tasks. Anywhere in your application, in your process layer, if there is any such requirement that you need to create parallel tasks for two separate activities, we should implement a parallel gateway. Okay, so if I trigger this process, my first activity is triggered, activity 1. I will complete it. And what do I see now? All the three activities, activity 2, activity 3, and activity 4, all are triggered. And you can see tokens on top of every activity, right? That is my diverging parallel gateway. It is used to split an input into multiple outputs. Okay, so one input it is having here from activity 1, and it is splitting into multiple output path. Now let's see how a converging parallel gateway will work. Will it work exactly like an inclusive gateway? Let's see that. Okay, so all the three activities are triggered, so I'll complete them one by one. Okay, first I'll start with activity 2. So what do we see now? I still see the token is waiting again on my converging parallel gateway, and it is waiting for the other tokens to reach from activity 3 and activity 4. So I'll complete all one by one. So the second token has reached, and you can see here two tokens are waiting on top of this gateway. Okay, let me just maximize this, zoom in so that you can understand. Okay, here we see two tokens, 13 and 14, both are waiting on the converging parallel gateway. Now only activity 3 is left. So we'll complete activity 3. Now I see the token has moved to activity 5. By this it is clear that converging parallel gateway also waits for all the tokens to reach, and then only it allows the token to move to the next component, right? Very similar to a converging inclusive gateway. But how can both be similar, guys? I mean, if both functionalities were similar, then why would we add a converging parallel gateway over here? So let's see who is smarter. So I'm going to design a faulty process. Okay, so a process which will never work. So this diverging parallel gateway, I will change this to a diverging inclusive gateway. And I am going to implement some condition over here. tw.local dot validation success equal to true for the first condition, and for the second condition tw.local dot employee location dot to lowercase equal to India. So both the conditions should satisfy, right? Both activity 3 and activity 4 should be triggered. So let's see what happens after that. So activity 1 is triggered for the new instance. I will complete activity 1. Now what will happen? Both the activities will be triggered. Activity 3 and activity 4, you can see both are triggered, but activity 2 is not triggered, right? Now I have a converging parallel gateway over here. Let's see how it will work. I'll claim and complete both these activities one by one. This is activity 4. I complete activity 4. The token has moved forward. It is waiting for the other token from activity 3 to reach. Let me claim activity 3. Now I complete activity 3 and the token will now move forward, right? Now see what is the issue. This converging parallel gateway is still waiting for a token to come from activity 2. Now who is smarter? Converging inclusive gateway, because it knows which is an available path and which is an active path. Converging parallel gateway, it waits for tokens to reach from all available path. But a converging inclusive gateway, it waits for the tokens to reach only from the active path. So naturally converging inclusive gateway is way more smarter. In case if I have to implement anything like this, I should always go for a converging inclusive gateway. Okay, so this needs to be replaced with a converging inclusive gateway, then only this process will be completed. You see the faulty design, since it is waiting for the token to come from activity 2, it will never move forward to the activity 5. So this design is wrong. Okay, that is the reason I added this to show you guys that how adding a converging parallel gateway in such scenarios can cause issue. Understood the different types of gateways?
Yes, Rahul.
Any queries, guys? Okay. Okay. So if you've understood all the gateways, then we are good. I will share the use case with you, which would involve human services, designing of the coach and layout, and also gateways, implementation of gateways. So go through the requirement today. Tomorrow when we come, we'll discuss on the requirement in the morning, and then you can start implementing it yourself.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, guys, we can close it here. If you don't have any queries, we'll come back tomorrow.
Rahul, I have a query to Pasha and Jay. Are you facing any issue in the cloud version of IBM?
No, actually, I just practiced earlier.
It is okay, right, for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me also it's working fine. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll see. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll share a few documents as well as a requirement today. Please, George.
Rahul, tomorrow what will be the time? Morning?
Tomorrow we'll connect from 8 to 10. Okay, since we missed the last session last week, so I thought of completing both the topics today.
Okay.
Okay, so from tomorrow onwards, normal time like 8 to 10, we'll connect.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.